proficiency in leadership doesn't always follow tenure. Yes, tenure provides experiences, but in order to grow in your leadership, it requires a desire and a growth mindset to improve your skills. Tenure doesn't equal leadership. Think of it like a golfer. There's a lot of golfers that have a lot of tenure. They've played a lot of rounds of golf. They've gone to the range a lot, but they don't get better. Leadership is similar. It can help, but it doesn't automatically help. So how do you shorten this timeline in order to get more proficient as a leader without just waiting for a lot of time to pass? Well, what it requires is you to know some fundamental principles. A principle, by definition, is a concisely worded statement of truth that transcends circumstance. It's something that you can rely on, whether you're in Charlotte, North Carolina, or Houston, Texas, that you can think about as a principle, a fundamental truth that you can apply to get better outcomes. Now, where are these principles come from? Well, the principles that we're going to cover today to help newer managers improve their proficiency to lead better more quickly come from building the best in our research over the last 12 years, studying some of the best leaders on the planet. Now, does an experienced leader, do these not work? Yes, they still do. But what they're the foundational principles that you can rely on when you're struggling or you need to go back to. So be sure to save this to help you when you're in these moments where a principle might help. All right, so I'm going to dig in right out of the gate. Let's go ahead and get started. Principle number 1 is first who, then what. First who, and then what. Now, your product is your people. It's not your software or your service. Yes, it's helpful if you're a restaurant, if you have really good food. That's the product. Yes, if you're a restaurant, it's helpful if you have really good service. True. But what is required is the people to deliver that. So if you're in the leadership business, you're in the people business. And Jim Collins, I learned this from Jim Collins. He says, first who, then what. That is the principle. So it's not about what you do or how you do it. It's about who you have on the team. It's about getting the right people on the bus before you think about what it is that you do. Because until you have the right people, first who, your job as a leader is going to be so much more challenging. So the first fundamental principle that you need to know is first who and then what. It always starts with the people. All right, number 2, without strong relationships, you can't lead. Without strong relationships, you can't lead. Now, your competence as a leader is important. How smart you are, your IQ, how much you know your business, how much you know your products and your services, your competence is absolutely important. However, competence can be arrogant. So this is why we have to know that without strong relationships, you can't lead. Now, what most leaders do is they ride in on their accountability high horse. They just ride in like this. And while accountability is at the center of any successful leader, accountability is so much easier and more successful when people know that you care about them. And at the center of every relationship is trust. And when you increase trust in a relationship, it allows you to increase the level of accountability. It allows you to challenge and push them and demand more out of them and get them to a higher level. So without strong relationships, you can't lead. Trust is at the center of it. But how do you build trust? All trust is consistency over time. And once you build that trust consistently over time, doing what you say you're going to do, it will allow you to lead with more accountability. Because if you got somewhere to take notes today, I want you to write this down. Rules before relationships lead to rebellion. Lead with rules, have standards, but if they don't know you care, it's going to be an uphill climb. I'm reminded of an old Abraham Lincoln quote. He says, if you don't like a man, get to know him better. There's going to be a lot of people in your leadership that you don't like, or you don't get along with, or your personalities don't match. You got to work hard at least to have some level of respect and trust in that relationship so you can lead them well. So number 2, without strong relationships, you can't lead, because trust, my friends, is earned. Number 3, people persevere because of purpose, not pay. Now, money is an excellent motivator. It is. But money will only motivate to a certain point. What people persevere for is a shared purpose, a deeper reason behind the work that they do. Now, anytime one of our coaches is coaching a manager or even an executive, they remind them that great leaders connect the mundane to the meaningful. I was thinking tonight, I was at a Chipotle having a date night with my daughter, and there's a big long line, and all the people working there, it's pretty mundane work. It's the same set of food all day long. But the manager's job there is to make the work that they're doing meaningful. He only can pay those people so much before they can no longer make a profit or have an open restaurant. But what the manager can do is connect the people to a deeper purpose, because people persevere because of purpose, not pay. You can't underpay your people and just add purpose, but you only get to such a point with pay that people will stop persevering. Part of your job as a leader is to think about the deeper meaning and the shared purpose behind your work. All right, number 4, the instant standards are lowered is the instant performance begins to erode. Now, to understand precisely how any leader gets great results, you have to understand something called the route to results. And the route to results goes like this. Leaders create standards. Standards become behaviors. Behaviors become habits. And habits lead to our results. A standard is simply defining what good looks like. And what we've learned in our work is that good leaders define what good looks like. Great leaders define what great looks like. So once we've defined that standard of what great looks like, it's going to produce behaviors in team members. And then once those behaviors are repeated enough time, it will become a habit. Something that you do so often, it becomes the very essence of your being. Something that you do without thinking. And then that is going to lead to the results that we get. We're preparing for a workshop, Accelerate Leadership workshop this week for a restaurant chain. And one of the examples that the manager of this restaurant gave that he's struggling with is people come up to the front line to order their food, and then something happens between the customer and the team member behind the register where they get the order wrong. They order fries instead of tot, so they get this sauce instead of that sauce. And what it causes is the kitchen to remake food. It requires employees to then have to run food out. It wastes time and energy and effort. Everybody can make a mistake, but the standard of performance in his restaurant is that once a customer is finished ordering, the team member will take 30 seconds to replay the order to ensure that they got it right. That's the standard. Once a team member does that a few times, that's the behavior that he's looking for. And once they do it 30 or 40 or 50 times, it will become a habit and they'll do it without thinking. And once that manager gets behaviors that become habits like that, it's going to save his restaurant time, energy, and money because we're going to get the orders right the first time. That, my friends, is the route to results. So the instant you lower those standards is the instant performance begins to erode. The instant you lower that bar of what a great standard looks like, people will default to that standard. And before you know it, performance and outcomes will decline. It is the start of the downfall, and it is so tempting to want to lower the standard for someone when they haven't met it. But here's the tricky part. If you start lowering the standard for people, it will become your new normal for everyone. And high performers like to be around other high performers. And if you tolerate people's behaviors to be below the standard, that's eventually what you're going to get. All right. And number 5, the 5th principle that will help make you a more effective leader is someone's best performance tomorrow requires personalized coaching today. 99% of professionals can benefit from coaching. Even if they don't think they need it, they can benefit from outside perspective, outside coaching, outside accountability. People need coaching. But someone's best performance doesn't require generic coaching. What it requires is personalized coaching to them. Now, the vast majority of people will only go to the point in which it gets uncomfortable. And that's why the personalized coaching becomes so important. I had a coaching call with a speaking coach for my keynotes and workshops. And yes, there were some generic principles in it, but when he made it personalized to me, it helped take my content, my delivery up 1%, a little bit better, because someone's best performance tomorrow requires personalized coaching today. And if you're a manager, it's unlikely that your organization will pay for external coaches for you or for all of your team members, which means you have to play the role of coach. So there you have it. 5 basic fundamental principles that will help newer managers lead more effectively. Number 1, first who, then what? Number 2, without strong relationships, you can't lead. Number 3, people persevere because of purpose, not pay. Number 4, the instant you lower the standards is the instant performance begins to erode. And number 5, someone's best performance tomorrow requires personalized coaching today. Now it's your job to write these 5 principles down, to have them somewhere handy so you can recall them, so you can shrink the time in which it allows you to be proficient. The majority of managers fail in their leadership role. And the main reason is that organizations don't have the time to give you. They don't have the time for you to fail and get better. They need you to be proficient quickly. So, tenure doesn't always equal leadership. However, these 5 fundamental principles, if you remember them, if you keep them handy, will help you be a more effective leader. Are they easy to remember? Yes. Are they easy to apply? No. So I'm not asking you to apply all of them tomorrow. Now is the time in history not to know what. Now is the time in history to know how. Take one of these 5 principles, the one that you need the most, the one that your team needs the most, and focus on applying one until you get proficient, and then move on to the next one.